Hey, what's up guys? It's me, the Silent Marksman here bringing a video, and in today's video I am going to be doing a
Oh,
podcast, the Spartan podcast. It's the new podcast we're going to be doing or not the Spartan podcast, Jesus Christ. The Marksman
nice.
podcast, the podcast that we're going to be doing for our new esports team. I have a couple questions lined up for the Divine Warlord, the co-creator. Well, I guess I'm his co-creator because it was his idea person that we're doing the esports team, and I have a couple questions for him. This podcast is probably going to be mostly political, but there's probably going to be some games and stuff too that we're going to take interest in or something like that. But my first question is, how do you feel about the security of the last election? Do you think um, it was like over exaggerated the cheating? Do you think there wasn't any cheating, or do you think like it wouldn't have made much of a difference? Maybe a slight difference for the win for Trump, or what do you think about it?
I think with any election, I mean, to be frank with you, most elections there's always some form of cheating going on. We can't deny that.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing is, this time it seemed to be more blatant.
This time they were more sloppy with
More,
it.
yeah, it's almost as if they knew that Joe Biden had a lot of special kind of people who were helping him, and they wouldn't mind him, because the evidence that they say they have and that they may not have, I don't know. I'm not a politician, but the evidence states that the machines that they used for voting were fraudulent. The hard drives are being wiped out where they had Trump votes. They
Mm-hmm.
had papers being ripped up and they had proof that the papers were being thrown inside the trash can that had Trump on it because the people who were counting them did not like Trump. And it's kind of like I said, where you're always gonna see stuff like that no matter what. But it just seemed more convenient that it happened in a large scale towards Trump this year
Mm-hmm.
rather than last year. And I think this election, I think for sure Trump may have had cheated in previous elections, as most politicians do. But I think this one he tried not to because he knew that Joe Biden would cheat and he wanted to call him out on it. The only thing is his plan kind of didn't work because he called Joe Biden out, no one cared.
Mm.
And there's nothing much you can do about that because if the government won't care for it, won't stop it, then it just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So I think it was a tough election. We're still, I mean, tomorrow Joe Biden gets inaugurated,
Mm-hmm.
which is going to be a scary day for all Americans. Speaking of which, if this is out before then, stay safe. Honestly,
This
all of
this will
you
be
in
out
New York and
tomorrow.
Washington, all that. If you live in a major city, stay safe because there's been talks of riots and
There's gonna be
very, very bad
20.
things happening.
There's gonna be 20. Actually, they're talking about making up to 30K soldiers in DC the day of.
There is already 30K soldiers in DC now. They've
Mm-hmm.
been sleeping at the Capitol, but right now they say they're going to add another 15K, so up to 45K to 50K of soldiers are going to be there in hopes to protect whatever is going to happen.
Yeah, the most popular president in U.S. history of voting is going to have the biggest protection ceremony since what, Abraham Lincoln?
Yeah, and the worst part is it's like I can't want to say that they're being irrational by having that many soldiers, but they've already arrested like 6 dudes who brought guns and fake passes to go to the inauguration practice. So I think while they are being a little paranoid with 50,000 soldiers, I think it is a good caution to take because we may not like that Joe Biden's going to be our president, but if he's going to, might as well accept him and keep him from dying. Because if he does, then we have Kamala Harris, and rather have Joe Biden. So at this
Rather have
point, it's
somebody
just
that sleeps instead of somebody who's just gonna arrest everybody
yeah.
for
So
not
it's like
going to school
it's
because they
best
can't afford it.
it's best if we just keep Joe Biden alive, take care of him. Honestly, it's gonna be a tough transition, but from what he's saying he wants to do a lot of things on his first day as president, which I don't know if he's actually gonna do them. But if he does, I mean, we'll just have to see where it goes. This is gonna be hard for him. It's gonna be hard for everyone in the White House to transition,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm sure he'll find a way to do it. I'm not happy that he's president, but if he is, might as well hope that he does as good as he can, or at least that he changes his mind and decides to do what Trump planned to do.
Mm. So at first, when Biden was basically elected, they were talking about just doing tests on the military to make sure that they would follow his orders and basically do what the military is supposed to do: follow his orders, go attack when they're supposed to, protect when they need to, and stuff like that. Now they're
Yeah,
saying that they are going to check if they have voted for Trump at all in the last 4 years. They're going to check their if they have voted for Trump, if their allegiances lie with Trump at all, and if they do, they haven't said anything about what they'll do, but they're saying that if their alliances are with Trump at all, um, they're going to be taking into account that as well as other things. Um,
yeah.
how do you feel about that?
I think honestly, it's dumb that we have to do that nowadays, but I can see why they're going to do it and why they're going forward with it. As stupid as it may seem, it makes a lot of sense. Um, Trump supporters, for the most part, are amazing people, and I can attest to that. The only problem is there's a select few that will do things that they probably shouldn't do.
Yeah, but we're talking about they are going to test the entire military
Military.
force in
Well,
Washington and probably as a
yeah,
whole eventually.
I believe that they're only going to do it in Washington because that's who's going to be there to watch or to protect Joe Biden, and they don't want a Trump supporter um, protecting him because, like we saw at the Capitol, that wasn't all Trump supporters. Most of that was peaceful. There's always the one or two that get really emotional about Trump, about how Trump lost, and it's for a good reason. He lost unfair. That's the reason to be upset. But there's a few who take it a little too far, and they tend to do things that they shouldn't do. And if they have guns, so heaven forbid they kill Joe Biden right there, could say, "Oh well, Trump should have won." Then that's a problem for us because then Kamala Harris is going to be president.
Well, I agree with that to a certain extent. I agree with they should see like if they like there's a different way to see than just like asking them, "Hey, who did you vote for?" and things like that. Like there's ways to test over the time that we've
Oh, for
had
sure.
that actually show will they listen to orders, will they do this, will they do that, instead of just, oh, you voted for Trump, so you can't be here.
But here's the problem: is that they waited so long to where they basically had like a few days until the inauguration, and the fastest way to sort through all the people would be just to go through who voted for Trump and who voted for Joe Biden.
Well, yeah,
Simple
but
as
how
that.
many people do you think voted for Trump just because they didn't want Hillary?
A good majority of them probably voted for Trump because he's a Republican, and as the military personnel, they most likely will vote for a Republican because Republicans help the military. That's a big thing on the Republican side. So they're gonna lose a lot of men to that process, but to them they see it as a win because to them they're like, oh well, at least there's no extra risk towards Joe Biden, which there always will be a risk.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I believe this is just my belief. I believe he's going to either get really hurt or he's going to get killed on inauguration day. He might not, but that's my belief. I think he will. Not that I want him to, but I just think he will. Just a lot of things going on in the country right now. I think he just came at a really bad time. So I definitely believe he's going to get either assassinated or he's going to get attempted assassination and somehow survive.
Hmm. Okay. My phone keeps turning off, so my questions are going away, and this is really annoying. So, what do you think will happen in the next 4 to 8 years? Do you think we're gonna have something along the lines of what we've had in the last 4 years? Do you think, basically, we're not gonna make much progress at all because I think most of the Senate is still Republicans? So, do you think
Yeah.
it's gonna be like a year full of no's? Do you think it's gonna be about the same, or do you think it's gonna be more leaning towards some of the things that happened while Trump was actually in office? Of, for example, the Green New Deal, where they were giving, I think, millions of dollars to gender studies in, I don't remember if it was Iraq, Pakistan, where exactly it was, but they were giving millions to gender studies. Do you think it's going to be more like that, or more like helping in our nation and keeping to ourselves for the most part?
I think I think Joe Biden is a hypocrite in the best way possible. because he says stuff like, we're gonna put money towards gender studies. We're gonna do all that, but he's a Christian at heart. And if you look at how he grew up not believing any of that stuff, which obviously doesn't mean that it's not true or that. Well, I believe it's not true. There's only two genders, but
Mm.
I think for the most part, he's not gonna do all the things that conservatives are scared of. I think for the most part, he just said what he said to get the right people to support him, and it worked because he got a lot of the youth and a lot of the younger people, per se, not really young, but younger people who can vote to vote for him because he said stuff that they like, stuff like there's more to gender, stuff like he, she use pronouns. He doesn't use that on a day to day basis, and he doesn't care less for him. He said what he said to get the job done, and how did it work out? It worked out well. The thing with Trump is Trump's not trying to win over votes. He wants to be as legit as possible. He wants to be as open, which is a great thing, but it's not gonna. It lost him that election.
He wants to be just like whenever he remember when he walked out of that helicopter and just said, "We made millions of dollars selling weapons," and I'm like, excuse me.
Yeah,
He just
he wants to be as blunt as possible. Whereas Joe Biden just wanted to win, which is fine. That's what most politicians do. But
mm,
it's just a respect for Trump for saying himself to win the or to try to win the election.
mm. I honestly disagree. I don't disagree with he doesn't like really care about that stuff mostly, and he's not going to do much of it. But at the same time, I feel like there are going to be multiple times where he is going to make large strides towards those things that he was talking about, and then times where he's going to do like basically nothing. So it's just going to be like, just for example, just randomly, it's going to be a period of like 2 months where he's just going to be like gender studies, gender studies, gender studies, and then another 4 months where he basically just hibernates.
I don't know if he'll do gender studies. I think that's one thing he'll probably avoid after this is all done, or once he gets in office, because his big things right now. If you watch any of his interviews, the big things he's been talking about right now is trying to fix treaties, like going back to the Paris Treaty for um, climate change, I believe. And
Mm.
just his big thing right now is going out to make friends in the world, trying to get back with France and all that. Because apparently Trump ruined those. He ruined a bond that we have with those countries. Which, if you look anywhere in the news, that's nowhere near true because we're still good friends with all of them and still good allies. But
Yeah,
his biggest thing is trying to fix our allies and trying to find a cleaner way to make fuel and stuff like that,
well,
which is great and
we
all, but
basically have the same allies now as we did before, except for, I mean, obviously China doesn't like us much more, but North Korea, I mean, is
yeah.
a little bit better of friends, and then we're also getting more jobs here and things like that. Um,
And then the big things that they don't talk about is how he solved the problem or not solved, but he fixed the problem in the Middle East, where he's helping countries, stop fighting, helping them get treaties going and all that. I'm
and
like, but that's not in the main news.
he's doing that while taking our troops out, while like
Yeah,
getting a bunch. And he could, I guarantee you that if he wasn't for what was it, half of his election going through election fraud, things like that, he would be easily have done like twice, 3 times as much. But I mean, obviously you can't really tell because he didn't, because I mean all that stuff did happen, but I feel like if he didn't have all that stuff going on in his first time when he actually didn't even know most of what was going on anyway, he would have done a lot more.
yeah, I think for sure. Same, yeah. It's just a bad situation for Trump. He got thrown into a pandemic and did really well, but the fact that there was a pandemic just made it seem like he did terrible. But he's doing really well compared to how most people would have handled it. I mean, we're not dying in mass numbers. A lot of the people who died, quote unquote, to COVID, having people who had like heart disease and all that, and they're just saying, "Oh, well, just put it underneath a COVID case and hope for
Yeah,
the
because
best."
they just, well, not recently, but they only a little bit after started differentiating deaths with COVID to from COVID.
Exactly, and then you see a downward trend, and it's like, oh, well, maybe this whole time Trump was onto something. It wasn't mass kills from COVID. It was just people dying from a sickness that they always are that they have.
Mm.
And it's like, oh well, it's too late to say that he was right because now they done got all stressed out from it, all worked up about it, all for what? For nothing.
And keeping the subject on COVID, I'm glad I had this as my topic since we're not talking about it. How do you feel that literally as soon as Biden gets, well, not as soon as, but like recently, I think Cuomo and some other people have been talking, we need to reopen as soon as possible. Now that Trump is, or I guess he didn't say now, he didn't specifically say now that Trump isn't in office, but he basically now that Biden is in
Trump.
office, he said
Yeah.
we need to open as fast as possible. We need to get these doors open.
Yeah. And that's one point that Trump made the whole time was we need to keep America open. And they always shut him down saying that was a stupid idea. You're gonna kill people. But when Joe Biden comes to the office, it's like maybe we should open up. They're like, "Oh, Joe Biden, you're amazing. That's genius. Why didn't I think of that?" And
Mm-hmm.
it's like so when Trump says it, it's wrong. But when Joe Biden says the exact same thing, all of a sudden it's a genius idea.
Bro, it's
And it's
so
like
obvious,
that
man.
just shows that they just
Orange man
don't
bad,
like Trump.
white man good.
Yeah, it's like
White
come
man
on,
good,
we
but
can
we're
use a
fighting
few
against
more.
racism.
Yeah, I don't understand them anymore.
So, oh yeah. So also, my next question is, how do you feel that while the lockdowns were still going on, there were fines, there were arrests and things like that for the smaller businesses, which are still going on, even though we're starting to open up a little bit more. There were fines, arrests, and things like that for small
Yeah,
businesses, but the bigger businesses like Walmart, I went into Walmart like 3 days ago, and you rub shoulder to shoulder, nobody cares. I went to
yeah,
Fry's, which for those of you guys who don't live in Arizona is basically,
a Walmart.
yeah, it's basically a Walmart for Arizona. And we were again rubbing. People were touching the same fruit that weren't even like somebody would watch someone touch a fruit and they just wouldn't care. Most people don't even care at this point. They're just choosing what they have to choose to get out of the pandemic as fast as possible. Um,
Yeah.
how do you feel that those small businesses are being affected way more than the big businesses, just in general, like getting closed down? Not even like taking the cost, but just getting closed down and treated worse.
Yeah, it's like Trump said. America's made to help small or help the small guy out. But with Joe Biden and not just Joe Biden, but just with the House of Representatives in general and the Senate and all that, they're just it seems like they see a small business and instead of helping it, they're like, no, we get paid more to help out the big tech guys or the big people. So let's just ignore the small businesses and get them out the way. And it's like you can't help one without helping or you can't help one with and just ignore the other one. That's not how this is supposed to. Work. Especially when it's a small business, you should be helping them if anything.
Yeah,
Like it's
that's like taking the upper class and middle class and getting rid of the lower class. And then the middle class is just gonna be the lower, the high class is gonna be
yeah,
the middle, and then it's just gonna screw everything up.
yeah. I don't understand why they decided, hey, small dudes, screw them.
Hmm.
Like don't help out the small ones.
Yeah, leave Missouri
Just
alone.
ruin. Oh,
Ah, ah. And this is my last question. This is basically all I got written down. But do you feel like Corona was like just a mass hoax to basically force people to vote whoever they could to get out of it? Do you think it was partially over exaggerated, or do you think like it was just as dangerous? Do you think we should have been locked up for almost a year now, or do you think it should have been either just 2 weeks, 5 days? How long would you have locked us down for, and how much do you think it was just a political gain and a just basically overall taking advantage of what they could?
I would say to go off of the first question you asked, I would say most likely it wasn't a hoax.
Mm.
COVID is real. It could have been made in a Chinese lab, or it could just been a strain that evolved. Either way, I don't think it was. I don't think it came by with bad intentions. I just think that they saw it as a opportunity to make something happen. And as soon as they saw, hey, there's a virus that can make that is worth being a or worth being called a pen uh, uh, a mass pandemic, then they were like, let's make something happen with that. So while they did blow it out of proportion, I can see how for the first month we should be locked down. Like for the first month, maybe 2 months, extreme lockdown, just so you can see what this is and what you need to do to prevent it, stop it from spreading. That's what you should be doing in the first 2 months of a lockdown. Once you know what to do, let them go back out. Because then, if you don't, you're ruining the economy. You're ruining their mental health. It's gonna get worse. So I would only locked down for 2 months. Use that time to find out like how they found out that masks don't help, but everything else does. It's just stuff like that that shouldn't have been so hard, but it was apparently.
See, I agree with the fact like by hoax I mean like do you think it was just not that bad? I didn't mean like do you think the virus didn't exist? I just meant like
Oh no, yeah,
yeah.
I still think it was. I think it has the potential to be really bad because it
Mm,
goes case by case, and that's what's so scary about COVID, and that's what made it so scary. Is that you can't gauge if it's strong or not by one person. You have to gauge it person by person, which is why it's better to just try to avoid it. But if you know that it only affects a certain group, then just help that one group. Don't screw it over for everyone else because one group is at risk. If it's just the older people who die the most from it, then tell them to stay home, stay inside your house, have someone to go get your food for you, the groceries, you'll be fine. But then they don't want to lock everyone down, and people obviously don't like being told that they have to be locked down when they're just trying to live their lives, and that's for a good, understandable reason. I would do the same thing. So it's just a tough situation to be in because we don't know enough about COVID. Even now, we don't know
mm.
enough about COVID.
See, what I would have actually done was a little bit different than you. I think that COVID was like decently bad. I'm not gonna say like it wasn't anything at all. I think it was decently bad, but I feel like it was blown like way out, extremely out of
I
proportion.
absolutely agree after the first 2 months because for the first 2 months we didn't know anything, so of course they're gonna blow out of proportion because they're
Mm,
trying to figure stuff out. But after that, they definitely kept going and they should have stopped because we knew enough to know that masks weren't gonna help because it was airborne, but it's not enough that or it's small enough that the masks weren't gonna help. Masks
mm,
are great and all, but they don't do much, as found out in recent studies from scientists who have studied this for months.
mm.
It's the whole thing of they blew it out of proportion. They kept blowing it harder, and I don't know why.
But what I would have done would be slightly. So after 1 month, I would have started opening slowly. I would have made sure that elderly and younger children that are more and basically just people who are more susceptible um were recommended to stay in. Of course, I mean, I'm not going to say you're forced to stay in, but like basically they're on pandemic lockdown just like we are now, so you can still go to like the big stores and stuff. And then I would slowly, and then I would sign an executive order because I think after the first month and a half, we noticed that they were doing cases with COVID instead of cases, deaths by COVID specifically, because they would get more money if they had a death specifically with COVID. Because of the pandemic, so they needed because of the pandemic, they get more funding for the virus that obviously needs fighting. So I would have said you have to separate with and for. And then what I would have done is after seeing the numbers go down, I would have reduced the lockdowns by probably about half. And if the numbers didn't skyrocket or go up tremendously, I would have reduced it by about another quarter and slowly until it was fully open. That's what I personally would have done. And then obviously, if there was like a huge spike, maybe lock down like the most recent group of people that maybe caused that spike, and then see if that. and then we could basically just by doing that eliminate the factors of what was the most dangerous amount of people or what was the most affected people and things like that. That's what I personally would have done.
Yeah, I think that state by state as well would also be a good way of doing
Mm-hmm.
it, like state by state. Just seeing because there's some states right now that have really low amount of cases, and they're being treated as if they're a hotspot, which is just rude because they are in a hotspot and they could easily go enjoy life and be fine,
I
but
think
they're
it
being
was
treated so.
I think it was what Sweden that had no lockdowns at all, and they have lower coronavirus numbers than us. And
Yeah,
like
they
multiple
actually
other
have like
countries had
half
no
our numbers.
lockdowns at all, and they just have lower. That's why I'm saying like after the first month, I think we should have started opening because herd immunity would eventually kick in.
Yeah, and that wouldn't be such a bad thing to try.
And the fact that herd immunity would have kicked in earlier, I think would have in the short term led to slightly increased numbers, but or slightly increased deaths. Sorry, but I think in the long term, the deaths would have went down dramatically from what they are now, and they're 200K. I think in the long term, we probably by now we would have only had like 130K if we started doing it slowly instead of like in one day we opened them all back up. We said, oh, there's a huge spike and wondered why, and then closed back down. That was
Yeah.
ridiculous in my opinion. Of course, there's a huge spike when you let literally the entire population out. You should have introduced them slowly. Like first I would have done specifically people without corona. Then I would have done the younger, less vulnerable people without corona or with corona, and then I would have done the young or the and then I would have done the older people without corona. Then I would have done the younger people with corona, and then the older people with corona. And then eventually, if there was a spike, we know which one um, was the worst. At least that's how I would have done it. But yeah,
Yeah, that's a good way to go about it.
I don't have any more questions. So I mean, if you want to talk about anything, you're free to go.
Um, how about some plans that we can leak to your fans? Some plans for Marksman.
All right. I don't know
I'm
what
trying to
plans you're
think.
specifically talking about, but
Plan for Marksman into Marksman.
oh
Damn it,
yeah, by the
Marksman
way,
into.
shameless plug. If you guys want to join the Marksman team's content creation team, which is spearheaded by me, I will leave a link down below with a couple of the requirements. Again, it's going to be led by me, so if you have any questions or anything, DM me. Just go to the Discord link below. DM me the Silent Marksman, and then I can answer most of your questions that you have probably.
Hmm. Yeah,
But
and
I'm kind of
some.
retarded, so maybe not.
I mean, you were doing a good job. So, but some plans that we had in mind, some plans that I had in mind that we'll have to discuss some more later. But some plans I have in mind that I don't mind sharing with your viewers. It's probably oh, it's probably we do have a team going. Our coach that we have for the team is on vacation real quick. Once he's back, we're gonna go full gear into it. As well as we have a academy team for Valorant. We want to focus on this game first before we switch over to any game or any other games. We got multiple teams, but in the future we do plan on having multiple teams for multiple games. Right now we only have Valorant. We have our main team. We have our academy team. We also have subs for each team. It is looking good. Our academy team will be playing in a tournament series within the next few weeks. It's gonna be beautiful. If you would like to watch that, I will be streaming it myself. I'm just doing like a watch thing where I watch them play. Um, I just spectate, try to coach as I can. Well, not really coach, more just talk to chat and have y'all try your hand at being a coach. Even though they probably won't be able to hear you, just probably for the best.
Which is
Some
probably
of
for the best.
y'all are,
You
not the
suck.
best coach. Yeah, y'all aren't the best coaches, but it's okay because y'all can still try. My chat just
No, I'm
come
saying
in,
like they're just gonna
talk to them.
yell at our. They're just gonna yell at our players. You suck. What are you doing?
Probably,
Oh
but that's what
Jesus,
makes
I'm about to get murdered. Oh, juicy, juicy, yum, yum.
And that
So,
would make,
but
but that's what makes chat so good.
because they yell at your face. Um,
Precisely. So it makes
yeah.
chat so good because
So
they're powerful too.
when you think for the just a brief little I guess skeleton, when do you think that we're gonna have like our next team up, and what do you think it'll be, just so they can know and they can get their grubby little fingers on it?
Next team up, you say?
Yeah.
How do you mean?
So when do you think, like, when do you think is a good time, whether it's next year, the year after, whenever, like just a skeleton time or time frame for um making like our next team, like for example, a Call of Duty team.
Um, it's really hard to say, mostly because I want to have our team on this game, which is Valorant established, you know.
Mm.
But I think if we keep on track the way we're going, we can have a team for a different game up and running this year. I'd
This
say
year,
late this year, maybe August, because I want our Valorant team to get,
get into some good tournaments,
um,
get noticed and stuff like that.
yeah, to at least play in like 4 tournaments and get up to tier 2 ones. Once we get to tier 2 ones, which I already have some people I can talk to get in tier 2. Once our team is good enough for tier 2, I have no problem having the coach take over, and I just work on the Call of Duty team or Siege or Apex, whatever team we decide to do next.
And I can help you with the startup for the Call of Duty team too. Because other than content creation, that's really all I've been doing. Content creation and content creation team, which is a really light job. And our team members, for Valorant at least, are really easygoing, and they don't have many questions,
Yeah.
so it's pretty easy there. So again, guys, down in the description below, you can join the content creation team. We have I think we have four. I put a typo in my last recording. I think we have 4 Twitch openings left and 4 YouTube openings left. For those of you who want to join. Um, and are we gonna be expanding? I'm gonna guess we're gonna be expanding our content creation team once we expand to Call of Duty as well.
Yeah. I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna make the spots more or make the spots harder to get because we're gonna do a certain number of spots per game. So while he did say 4 and 4, we are gonna make that harder to get. You're gonna have to work hard to get it. We're gonna do only 2 and 2 per, or 4 and 4 for now. But once we start doing our other games, there'll be 2 and 2. So if you're a content creator, you're gonna need to you know
Try harder.
try a little harder. Yeah.
And for those of you guys wondering, speaking of trying harder, for those of you guys wondering why I'm the leader, um, I don't know. He thought I was a good leader. I'm not sure what's wrong with him. I'm not gonna lie. No,
Well, if I'm doing esports, I need someone to do content
yeah,
creation.
I'm pretty decent at like the leadership side of content. I'm more better at the strategy side of content creation than actually like getting noticed in content creation. Like I could tell you a couple tools that I use for content creation at least to get noticed in the algorithm a bit more and stuff like that. It's just that my content sucks. So,
Yeah.
um,
Not wrong. No, I'm kidding.
oh,
Oh,
he's usually a lot not. No, I can't lie to my fans. He's usually
yeah.
not a lot nicer
I like
in
you.
person. But yeah. Um,
I like
so
my fan.
look out for either later this year, early next year maybe. I'd say what do you think our time frame to try and make the COD team is? Late this year to mid next year would be our
Yeah, I'd
preferable
say
time
that's when
frame.
we want to have a team up and running.
He's dying. Um, yeah, I think that's all that I have. You want to say anything?
No, I think I'm good for tonight.
You want to talk about your crippling coke addiction or?
No, but you can check me out on Twitch, Divine underscore Warlord.
Oh,
Thank
just gonna
you.
shout yourself
Check me
out.
out. I make fire live streams. I play COD. I play a bunch of games. I'm a
I'm gonna
variety
say
streamer
every single
yourself.
racial slur I can think of on your next stream. I swear to God.
Okay, we're not doing that.
No, not really. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. If I ever
See
make
you guys in
one.
the next video.
No, no, no. You won't see them in the next. No, no. That's not how it works.
Yes, it is. I'll see you in the
Oh,
next video. I
oh,
love you,
okay,
chat.
okay. Well, yeah. This has been the Spartan. Or
Marksman.
I am very intelligent. Leave me
Down.
alone. This has been the Marksman podcast with you, your hosts, me, and then once we expand it, because Divine Warlord's kind of lazy and doesn't like doing the podcast. Um, yeah, it'll be your hosts, me and the guest of honor right now, the Divine Warlord. I mean, who better fitting to put on the first podcast? Yeah, see you guys in
Yes,
the next
sir.
video. There's no way I just got a teddy bear. Well, we're ending on a bad note. See you guys later.
Yikes.